Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the conference at which we will present the FY 2014 results reported by the Grupa Azoty Group. We will kick off today's conference in a slightly different manner than usual. Since we are at a movie theater or a screening room, we will start off with a short film. Let me also inform you that this will be our first conference ever to be transmitted online as a live webcast, both in Polish and in English. Without further ado, let us now watch a short film.
Kompozycją w przemyśle. Na jedynej takiej instalacji w Polsce z ponad 30 węzłami technologicznymi powstaje niekwestionowany lider wśród wszystkich znanych pigmentów – biel tytanowa. Jesteśmy z Wami od niemal 40 lat.
Naszą pasją są zakupy. W tej branży kupujemy najwięcej. Wspólnie z zespołem specjalistów spółek Grupy Azoty realizujemy zakupy o wartości powyżej 3 miliardów złotych. To dzięki nam nigdy nie brakuje surowców do produkcji, dzięki czemu praca może toczyć się non-stop. Nie tylko kupujemy u dostawców z całego świata, posiadamy również własne zasoby surowcowe. Pracujemy od kilku pokoleń, czujemy chemię jak nikt inny.
Jest integralną częścią Grupy Azoty. Dla nas liczą się oczekiwania klientów, jakość, konkurencyjność, doradcy, logistyka. Poszerzamy portfolio również o niszowe produkty. Przykład? Oksoplast Medica. Budujemy instalacje dla produktów przyszłości, plastyfikatorów nieftalanowych. Zmieniamy się dla naszych partnerów. Razem tworzymy przyszłość.
Jesteśmy jednym z największych producentów melaminy na świecie. Mamy blisko 40 lat doświadczeń. To się przekłada na jakość. Melaminę i mocznik dostarczamy obecnie do wszystkich największych konsumentów w Europie. Nasz produkt używany jest m.in. do produkcji kleju, paneli podłogowych, blatów kuchennych, a nawet banknotów.
Tworzywa to domena przyszłości. Systematycznie zastępują tradycyjne materiały. Ciągle się rozwijamy. Nadajemy naszym tworzywom nowe właściwości, a wspólnie z naszymi partnerami nowe zastosowania. 90% naszych produktów sprzedajemy za granicę. Jesteśmy grupą, co daje naszym partnerom biznesowym bezpieczeństwo i pewność, że zrealizujemy każde zamówienie.
Działamy globalnie. Nasze produkty docierają do rolników w Europie, Afryce i obu Amerykach. Dziś blisko połowa ludności na świecie ma dostęp do żywności dzięki nawozom, również tym, które pochodzą od nas. Grupa Azoty to 6 milionów ton zdolności produkcyjnych o pełnym portfolio rodzajowych. Po okresie intensywnej wewnętrznej integracji przyszedł czas na rozwój kolejnych produktów i kolejnych rynków.
Logistyka to nie tylko transport. Planujemy, przywozimy, magazynujemy, pakujemy i dostarczamy. Współpracujemy z największymi operatorami logistycznymi w Polsce i na świecie. Rocznie przewozimy 10 milionów ton, czyli 5 razy więcej niż ważą wszyscy Polacy. To my łączymy Grupę Azoty z otoczeniem, z klientami i dostawcami. Dzięki nam wszystko jest zawsze na czas.
Mam nadzieję, że spodobała się Państwu wizualizacja segmentów i będzie się to teraz
I hope you enjoyed the presentation of our business segments as a visualization of our business models. Let me now invite representatives of the group companies, management board presidents Paweł Jarczewski, Andrzej Skolmowski, Krzysztof Jałosiński and Marian Rybak to join me here. And I will now give the floor over to Mr. Paweł Jarczewski, President of the Management Board at Grupa Azoty. Let me welcome you again on behalf of the Grupa Azoty Group, the parent company Grupa Azoty S.A., and all of the 57 group companies, including 39 consolidated companies. We decided that today's conference will go by the name WOW. We will tell you why, but only at the end of today's meeting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by discussing the financial highlights reported by the group. In 2014, the group's revenue stood at 9,898,000,000 PLN, EBITDA was at 8,822 million PLN, net profit at 265 million PLN, and EPS reached 2.32 PLN per share. The key drivers which had a direct impact on our 2014 figures were as follows.
The downward correction in fertilizer prices market, especially urea and ammonia sulfate, a major feedstock for us, a record-breaking scale of NPK imports, more than 4 times year-on-year, a decline in the prices of plastics, which is a derivative of oil and oil derivative prices, and also the price volatility, depreciation of the Polish currency, which positively influences our competitiveness on the market as a company which is a net exporter. This year was the first year when we recognized both Siarkopos and our African company, African subsidiary results. And also we had to recognize an impairment loss of the phthalic anhydride unit, one of the oxo alcohols installations, which had an impact on the chemicals sector's results. You will find all the details and all the financial figures in the presentation. As far as the main milestones of the year and key events. Now, Grupa Azoty and the Grupa Azoty Group takes part in major initiatives both across Poland and on a European and global scale. First of all, we were included on the government list of strategic enterprises, which means that the State Treasury will not sell our stock and treats our group as one of the key enterprises of the Republic of Poland. Operationalization of the strategy for 2014-2020 is another key event as our value-building project. The Azoty program, which is an operational excellence program, a key cost efficiency scheme and initiative across the group. We signed a letter of intent with KGHM Polska for joint investment projects in the upstream segment. We signed letters of intent for the partnerships with a number of research projects and institutions in Poland. Grupa Azoty, the Grupa Azoty Group, was included on the board of the IFA, Fertilizers Europe, as well. This year, thanks to the efforts and measures taken by Fertilizers Europe, the European Commission agreed to extend anti-dumping duties for ammonium nitrate from Russia. And as an element of our initiatives in the fertilizers sector and in the discussion of the food safety across the globe and creating advantageous legislative framework around the globe, we took part in the Davos conference. We will continue those efforts. It was a great venue to meet with all the major financial institutions from around the world and also all our major business partners. We have met also at the Field Chemistry Conference with our business partners from all around the world, where we presented our agenda for a number of years to come, which enhanced our business relations, and this is visible in our day-to-day operations. All our installations and our products are used and produced in 100%, so our capacity is utilized. The Grupa Azoty Group was also included in the FTSE Emerging Markets Index, which is a very important and prestigious event. As far as the key highlights for individual companies, I will start with some major events which are the same across the group. In Tarnów, we launched a record high investment project. Another major event, we elected management board members for another term of office. The polyamides unit, we also, in terms of polyamides productions, we also had 2 new companies established. They will operate at the very end of our value chain, of our supply chain as well. We invited international and Polish partners to implement those projects jointly. We are also very happy that we received a Golden Issuers website title, because our corporate website was named one of the most transparent and effective websites of all Polish companies. And we were also recognized as one of the best investor relations companies in Poland, which makes me very happy as well. Krzysztof Osiński, president of the management board at Grupa Azoty Police. As you can see on the board, there's certain key information about Grupa Azoty Police. We can take pride in that for the 4th or even 5th time in a row to report very good results, despite a very challenging and very difficult 2013, the previous year, which was the worst year in the past 5 years. But in 2014, we reported twice as high results, and we are entering an upward trend. This can be seen in terms of our 2014 results. What's really important to us is that our main strategic goal is to improve this efficiency of our business. This is what we have been doing, and we do succeed, taking into consideration our EBITDA and the increase in our performance. Our strategy assumes 2 main ratios for our business, namely return on capital employed, reported at 14%. No, we assumed it at 14% by 2020, we already reported our return on capital employed at 8%. And another driver of our performance, not even to mention the Azoty Pro project, which is which gives us a lot of incentives to improve our efficiency. But we also have our Senegalese operations. We have not discussed that yet, but we need to mention that we import more than 200 million tons of phosphate rock. Police use around 1 million, about 20 or 25% of our consumption. And this has a major effect of our improvement of our efficiency. By volume, we reported an improvement of our sales volumes. Also due to very large imports of NPK to Poland, about 500,000 tons of NPK. It is a lot in comparison with our competition. And since our results are much better year on year, it seems that our systems of sale prove very effective. And another element, CAPEX. We will mention Police at this point, but I think that all our companies have noticed. For instance, Tarnów 1, Tarnów 2 and Tarnów 3 projects. But as far as Police is concerned, we spent a record high CAPEX on our investment projects at Police, mainly on the upgrades of our installations, of our energy units. This will not have a major impact of our financial performance, but it will help us to meet all the European Union regulations, for instance, in terms of desulfurization and emissions of greenhouse gases. Another project which will affect a positive impact on our financial performance, we will reduce the consumption of natural gas. And lastly, the management board of Police has changed, and has changed considerably because we have included a female management board member for the first time ever. Oh, actually, at Siarkopol we have another female management member, but in terms of the 4 major companies, we have included the first ever female management member across our main 4 companies in the Grupa Azoty Group. And she's been performing excellently since she was included in the management board, so this is something to emphasize. Ladies and gentlemen, now we'll take a look at another part of this slide, the main highlights for Grupa Azoty Puławy. We have mentioned the cooperation with KGHM and also 2 Malaysian companies, PCG and SOGDC. We will continue the implementation of our CAPEX projects. Last year I told you that we had launched our new liquid production unit, especially Pulaska, which is a liquid fertilizers. It sells very well. This year we will open the second part of our liquid production unit, this time for solid fertilizers. We will be launching this unit and the production in this unit until the end of the first half of this year. We have a license granted by Santika for the use of this company's equipment. We also launched the ammonia storage facility for 15,000 tons. It now allows us to produce ammonia on our own ammonia production and processing installations. We also we also obtained corporate agreements for the granulation, mechanical granulation of ammonium nitrate for 2 lines, 2 existing lines. We will have 1 line which will not be upgraded because ammonium nitrate produced on this 3rd line is used especially in the production of urea ammonium nitrate. As far as other key highlights for Grupa Azoty Puławy, we are diversifying the sources of gas used in the production of our products. In comparison with last year, in comparison with 2013, we had only 5% of gas sourced from sources other than PGNiG, but we are increasing this percentage year by year. Also on spot prices. We signed very advantageous long-term agreements with Silecol, Kronopol, and Kronospan, especially for the purchase of melamine and urea, because those companies are an extension, so to speak, of the supply chain for those products. And lastly, we received an award from the President of the Republic of Poland for the green economy for our pro-environmental initiatives. We keep developing and we keep performing as well as we can, and we will do our best to maintain this momentum for the years to come. Now, Grupa Azoty, Zakłady Azotowe Kędzierzyn. Mr. Adam Leszkiewicz. A couple of words about ZAK. Our assessment of the past year of 2014 is also very positive. You know the key financial highlights. What I want to emphasize is the impairment loss we had to recognize, which had a 40 million PLN impact and about 32 million PLN impact on our results. Therefore, we cannot complain that 2014 was a bad year. Also in terms of our main ratios, such as net debt and liquidity, because all those ratios maintain at a good level. The balance sheet total remained relatively flat year on year. We reduced our liabilities and our net debt. As far as individual and specific projects and tasks we implemented, the Silecol agreement is a major agreement we had to talk about because it guarantees the urea sales, our urea sales for the next 5 years. We opened a pilot installation for which will use waste gas in our production. We selected general contractor and we launched our project for energy generation. The construction works are already underway. But we also signed the so-called social agreement last year. In terms of our corporate social responsibility, we specified all our major social responsibilities. We completed the works for our new plasticizer. We are currently upgrading and optimizing and reaching our full capacity. In terms of that project, and within the next several weeks, we will launch this project officially in response to our customers' needs, because the customers want to have less phthalate plasticizers, and this is why we decided to meet those expectations of our customers halfway. Also, in terms of logistics, we had a number of projects to improve our logistics, our customer relations, at the beginning of the year. In comparison with the beginning of the year, we improved our operations in terms of logistics by 60%. But we also had to face a number of threats, declining prices of propylene. Let me remind you that the price of propylene went down about 230 euro. And this also impacts the expectations of our customers in terms of our product prices. By volume, we sell a lot, especially for our OXO unit, but our profit margins are much lower. We also had a breakdown, and our installation had to stop for about 2 weeks, and this also had an impact on our results in this area. Now, this slide is entitled Market Outlook. It concerns both this year, last year, and our future expectations for our market outlook. Our forecasts come true, and the fertilizer market is within the trend expected and assumed by the IFA. Last year, this year, in comparison with last year, we had a relatively higher result in this area. Now, in terms of wheat, we will have 230 plus million hectares in comparison with 220 million hectares last year. We will have to remember about the growing food consumptions around the world, which is directly related to the demographics and increasing standard of living around the world. This also has an impact and is related to energy resources. We are expecting this trend to continue, that is, declining prices and also the trends for crop production, especially corn. Now, China is a key driver for the market because China is a main producer and exporter of urea. They were focusing on the internal market, and customs duties were variable. But China decided to introduce a fixed price for urea. And last year, China exported 14 million tons of urea. This year, we expect 18 million. And a lot of urea exports will be sent to India and other Asian markets. This has a major impact on urea prices. We are expecting the price at 207. This requires a lot of measures because we are in for major price pressures. We are looking at a situation because we have to consider it from the perspective of our fertilizer productions. Now, the situation on the crude oil market and also the shale revolution, we have to take this into consideration as well. But we have to remember that this also means a lot of pressures in terms of the required capex, and also in the northern part of the United States of America. You have to remember that the situation is not very stable. We were in for major and continuing decline of gas prices in Europe, and this will also affect capex and financial performance both in America and all around the world. We are expecting a rise in demand by 2% in general. We have to especially focus on the construction and textile industry. We need to remember about falling oil prices and oil derivative prices. if we combine a decline of oil derivative prices, then we must remember that we sell 100% of our volume, but we are in for major volatility of our sales in individual periods. We will also have variations in the petrochemical market around the world, taking into consideration new installations, especially in the Far East. We have a very interesting situation in our sulfur production. We have Siarkopol within the group, and we have our own sulfur mines. Maybe it seems to not be a very good idea, but it's actually the other way around. Because if we combine the situation on the global market and the shutdown of installations, we will be witnessing a lot of price pressures for sulfur. And the fact that we have our own sulfur mine means that we will be gaining a lot of competitive edge, a major competitive edge. Noxy, or AdBlue, as it was previously referred to, the demand for that product is increasing, and we are expecting this demand to double. In this balance, this balance does not include the rising demand for urea solutions for other purposes other than for diesel engines. This demand is also rising in Poland. As far as feedstocks are concerned, volatile crude oil prices. This is a major uncertainty in terms of oil prices and a volatile element. We are expecting a further decline of our energy resources, which of course is of benefit for us. The expected ammonia price is about 440 million PLN per ton, which is lower than a year before. Now, as far as our outlook for the next several years, we had to consider the global events or macroeconomic events in 2014. The climate package, the European Union's climate package, is something we need to take into consideration. We need to think why Yara and Vescent, which are two major projects, two major companies, invest in hydrogen units. First of all, they will have lower emissions of carbon dioxide and also lower costs of upgrades. Maybe this means that the USA is trying to be ready for CO2 reductions in the future. We've already mentioned the anti-dumping duties for ammonia nitrates. We've mentioned China. We had continuing negotiations for the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. At our meetings and conferences, both within IFA and Fertilizers Europe, and a lot more venues, then the Polish chemicals industry approach is very unified. And this political situation in Eastern Europe, it has a major impact on the production of food, and especially grain. Because we need to remember that Ukraine is one of the major producers of wheat around the world. And for the past 2 or 3 years, Ukraine reduced its gas consumption, which has an enormous effect on the situation on the gas market in this part of Europe and across Europe in general. because let me remind you that Poland uses 15 million cubic meters of gas. Consolidation processes across in the fertilizers industry across the world is also something we need to talk about. And an successful merger between Yara and its equerry. This needs to be also taken into consideration. There are a lot of different merger and acquisition projects across the globe. And this is something that the fertilizer industry will see within the next couple of years in response to growing competitive pressures in this area. And lastly, security in terms of food security around the world. Because the rising population, global population, needs higher supply of food and, by extension, higher supply of fertilizers. We need better fertilizers and higher production of food. We need to remember that China uses a lot more fertilizers than Europe, not to mention Africa, which uses insufficient amounts of fertilizers to produce food. So on the one hand, we have excessive use of fertilizers, which affects quality of food, but also we have some regions around the world which do not use enough fertilizers to produce enough food. So we are involved in the discussions. We need to be visible, we need to have our voice heard in those discussions, because Polish industry the Polish agriculture has been enormously successful in the past couple of years. We have a surplus of our experts. We have modern, state-of-the-art technologies in our farming production, of our agricultural productions. This is a good example, and we need to be involved in those initiatives, and we will continue those efforts. Another major element, gas, natural gas. As you can see, Grupa Azoty, the Grupa Azoty Group, is diversifying its gas sources. We reached about 40% of non-PGNiG purchases of gas. We have gained financial advantages which positively impacts our financial performance. This is one of the key elements of our efforts, and we are prepared for that, and we have learned this lesson. The value building model is another very important element of our business, which we'll discuss now. But let me first go back to our capex and our investments, because we will have to mention ammonia and ammonia investments. This is related. One of the major investments currently underway is the upgrade of our ammonia units. And at Puławy, we've already completed those projects. Let me remind you that Puławy gained about 2 or 3% in terms of cost reduction, which results from reduced natural gas consumption. We are looking at more or less the same effect in Police, and we will have noticeable increase in capacity. Ammonia will drive our revenues and also EBITDA, and I am very positive about those results. I think we should look at this slide, because we are now upgrading our ammonia production units. We are currently at a moderate level in comparison with our peers across Europe, in terms of the innovativeness and our technologies. And due to our efforts, I think we will reduce the consumption of energy by 2 or 3 gigajoules per 1 ton of ammonia production, which will drive the cost of ammonia-based fertilizers down and will have a positive effect on our financial performance in general. I have mentioned that our ammonia production was a major element of our financial performance, but we also are implementing other measures, which are production-related as well. So you will see on the next slide how much money we spend or we are willing to spend to improve our production capacities. We are looking at about 1.5 billion zlotych in CapEx. This is something that we are implementing both in Puławy and Kędzierzyn. Now, this CapEx is related to our existing installations, but also we want to look at the so-called organic growth is one of the major elements of our strategy. Because, as you remember, our strategy is based on the figure of 7 billion PLN for organic growth, of which 1.2 billion, 1.5 billion is the capex on our production capacities. But we will be also taking decisions, or we have already taken them, to achieve all our strategic goals, both across the group and individual companies, for the next year. So we need to take this into account in terms of our implementation of our strategy. Mr. Marian Rybak will discuss it in more details. I am a person who works on the preparation of those projects, but Marian is the person who oversees and manages the implementation of those projects. Now, organic growth is a key element of driving our financial performance, but we also have 2 other pillars, as you remember. The Azoty Pro program is one of them. Our expectations were much lower than we are currently reporting. The Azoty Pro program has been successful and is successful. This is something we take pride in, and in addition to our financial or economic gains, which is a primary goal, we expect it to reach about 60+ million PLN, but we also have an overriding goal. This program will be completed in 2017, and our ultimate goal is much higher. Based on our current results, we can say that we will adjust our initial expectations by about 30%. As far as the key drivers of the Azoty Pro program, it is mainly production and energy. The energy, as far as energy is concerned, this area needs to be a priority for us. Since we have been focusing on energy cost reduction, we are seeing that this translates into our good financial performance. Also, purchasing and logistics, but those areas have much smaller effects on our financial performance. But in addition to our financial performance, we need to focus on the measures and the initiatives taken in individual companies within our group. We need to have an exchange of knowledge, and we need to develop synergies, and this is something that we see is working. And the third pillar of our strategy is acquisition measures and acquisitions. This is something we cannot go much into details because, as you know, there's a lot of things going behind the scenes during the negotiations with our partners. This is something we cannot talk about in more detail at this point. But I think that those our successful measures and the successful performance in the first two pillars of our strategy mean that we will have good performance, we will report good performance for our third pillar as well, that is for our mergers and acquisitions. Now, in the second part will be less. Our second part will be less emotional, which is the part that's devoted purely to our financial figures. Our revenue was 9,800+ million PLN. Net profit was 265 million PLN. No, but we need some emotions, so maybe we'll have some along the way. We need to emphasize that both our 2014 and 2013 results were driven also by non-recurring and one-off events. In 2014, we had an impairment loss on the phthalic anhydride unit in the oxo alcohols installation at about 40 million PLN. The EBITDA and our net result would be much different without those non-recurring events by about 270 million. In comparison with 2013, after correction on the back of our non-recurring events, that is acquisition of Fiorkopo and Puławy, and impairment loss on our installations, our EBITDA would be at 775 in EBITDA and 200 plus in net result. Now, by segment, you also see our results by segment. This is shown on the slide. Also for our profit margins, the margin went up year on year in the comparative quarter of 2013. Both EBITDA and our net result were much better or better year on year. Taking into account EBITDA alone, adjusted by non-recurring events, which amounted to 461 million, we need to emphasize that our EBITDA went up mainly due to our sales volumes at 527 million PLN. This is the amount by which EBITDA went up. Rising volumes of our sales of our products and services, and also declining prices of our feedstocks. If we consider the financial years of Puławy, the financial year all 12 months for Puławy and Police, we will see this effect. EBITDA was also driven by declining prices and higher cost of sales. As a result, our EBITDA stayed more or less flat, and we also had to recognize an impairment loss on the phthalic anhydride unit, and our final EBITDA is at 842 million PLN. If we compare revenue and EBITDA by segment, I cannot speak faster. Some of you speed me up, but I cannot speak faster. In terms of revenue, in the main segment, that is for the fertilizer segment, the revenue went up year on year. EBITDA is slightly lower than in the past year, and in terms of EBITDA contribution is at 66%. In terms of the fertilizers contribution across the group and across all segments. We need to take into account the declining prices of polyamides and the caprolactam prices as well. EBITDA increase is still on the negative side, but nevertheless, we can see that the EBITDA increase improved year on year, almost doubling. In our chemicals industry, the same trend or a comparable trend can be seen. In terms of the energy segment and the weight of the energy segment for the purposes of our internal production is at 158, which is more than in the last year, and EBITDA went up in comparison year on year. A good financial situation of the group, the balance sheet total is at 9 billion 900 plus. Our net debt was better than last year. And just in a nutshell, the agro fertilizers, taking into consideration declining prices of our products or main groups of our products, let me remind you that in fertilizers alone, prices of urea year on year went down 5%, ammonium sulfate by 14%, ammonia went up, the price of ammonia went up, and the ammonium phosphate went up as well. However, in quarter four, our results were much higher year on year. And overall, our EBITDA reached 494 million PLN in that segment. And we can see those price pressures and their impact on the agro fertilizers segment. As far as our plastics segment, sales volumes and revenues from sales were relatively flat year on year. We reported improved sales margins, but in quarter 3 and 4 we experienced major price pressures. In terms of our chemicals segment, we reported higher volumes by 20%. Revenues from sales went down, and the EBITDA margin went down as well, from 4 to 3%. Across the year, our cost structure, our costs by nature, went down by 4%, which is impacted mainly by declining feedstock prices and results also from the diversification of sources of our natural gas purchases. Now we will ask representatives of our key companies to present their financial performance. Mrs. Anna Gold, CFO and Chief Accountant of Grupa Azoty Puławy. Ladies and gentlemen, I will try to squeeze my presentation in and present it in a nutshell. As we've mentioned before, the entire year and also Q4 was a good period for our company. Our financial performance, both in Q4 and in 2014, are satisfactory and in line with our expectations. Q4 of 2014 was the last quarter of an atypical year for us, which is a transitional year. It lasted 18 months, not 12 months. If we focus on Q4, we reported 55 million PLN, which was up year on year. EBITDA went up as well, quarter on quarter, reaching 86 million PLN, and our net result is also higher. If we consider the entire period of 18 months, our revenues from sales is at about nearly 5 billion PLN. Our EBITDA and our net result is presented in the on this slide. 2014 was a slightly less positive year for us in terms of our performance, especially in comparison with the previous year. Our net result is also lower year on year. As far as the main elements and drivers of our EBITDA, if we compare 2013 and 2014, as we've mentioned before, our key drivers are prices, sales prices, which drove down our EBITDA by nearly 230 million PLN. EBITDA was also driven down by other costs of our sales, which resulted mainly from increased volumes. However, our EBITDA was also increased by prices or declining prices of our feedstocks and energy. By segment, we can see that our agro segment reported more than 600 million PLN in revenue, 310 for the chemicals, and our other segments reported nearly 40 million PLN. For our agro segment, quarterly results are a little bit higher, but in our chemicals segment, EBITDA went down slightly. But in general, in the chemicals segment, our results stayed relatively flat year on year. If we consider 2014 in general, we can see that our revenues went down by segment across 12 months, not 18 months. As far as our chemicals are concerned, our revenues were also lower if we compare it to 2013. As far as EBITDA is concerned, our EBITDAs are higher for agro. For agro, it was actually a little bit lower year on year, but in other segments, such as the chemicals, it was much higher. As far as our financial performance and assets are concerned, our situation is very good. The balance sheet total is stable. It remained relatively flat. which is mainly due to our non-current assets. Our property, plant, and equipment went up as a result of our CAPEX projects. Our non-current assets went down, but we have a good financial situation, and our net debt is on the negative side, and we are financing all our activities from own sources, from own funds. And we also use financial leases. As far as our agro segment is concerned, the main drivers for our revenues are our nitrogen fertilizers, urea, ammonium nitrate, and ammonium sulfate. In Q4, we reported a slight drop in revenues of those from the sales of those products. But there's something I need to draw your attention to, which is increased revenues from sale of merchandise and materials, raw materials, about 77%. But in absolute terms, it might not be very high, but it needs to be taken into account because this is an effect of our initiatives and our efficiency projects. Our group includes distribution companies which sell products, third-party products, or products produced by other Grupa Azoty Group companies. Our EBITDA in this segment went up in 2013, but it went down in comparison with 2013. As far as our chemicals segment is concerned, revenue in this segment in Q4 remained rather flat, maybe increasing slightly in Q4, but taking account the entire year, they went down slightly. As far as our main products are concerned, in terms of our chemicals production, caprolactam, melamine, and also urea solutions, the revenues from melamine and caprolactam stayed relatively flat. We reported an increase for urea. Our EBITDA year-on-year is 50% lower, which results from our product prices, mainly for caprolactam and melamine. As far as the structure of our costs, it does not change considerably. However, our costs by nature went down year-on-year by 1%, with the highest share of costs reported for natural gas and the consumption of other consumables and raw materials. It went down slightly due to the diversification of gas sources and the declining prices of gas. However, costs of other items, especially in terms of taxes and charges, went up, which is a result of the environmental package, which relates to CO2 emissions. In 2014, it was the first year when we recognized and amortized emission rights, which had an impact on our costs. In 2013. That would be it for me. Thank you very much. We have 57 companies in our portfolio. Let me remind you that we only have time to discuss it in a nutshell for 4 major companies only. The third company which will present its financial performance for 2014 is Police. Revenues from sale reaching 2,213 million PLN. EBITDA went up year on year at Police, and also we had an improvement in our net results, which was better than in 2013. We reported record-breaking sales at 658 million PLN. EBITDA in Q4 reached to 42 million PLN, which was much better than the year before, and net debt at 14 million PLN in comparison with a net loss a year before. In a nutshell, we will discuss the results of our parent company at Police Group, because our parent's results are slightly better than the group's results. EBITDA was higher for the parent, and also 83 million PLN for net profit. Consolidation adjustments had an impact on our results. A contribution in kind for the perpetual usufruct of land at 12.3 million PLN, dividend payout, and deferred tax. Those were the 3 main drivers of our EBITDA. In 2013, we had 136 million PLN, which was increased by higher volumes of sales and also by better prices, by lower prices of our feedstocks, mainly gas, and also the effect of our own sources of feedstocks. Now, our results by segment. We had lower production, we had lower sales for fertilizers and pigments. EBITDA was much higher, mainly for fertilizers and for pigments as well. So that is a noticeable improvement. In fertilizers alone, volumes were higher, as I've mentioned before, combined with declining revenues. We had one exception, which is urea, which reported higher revenues, which had a positive impact on our EBITDA, which went up by 54 million PLN in 2014, both across the year and in Q4 alone. In terms of pigments production, we reported lower revenue, but a slight improvement in EBITDA, which improved our profit margins in this segment. Our cost structure, by nature, we reported a major effect in terms of declining prices of our key feedstocks and raw materials, and we had access to lower phosphate rock sources through the acquisition of an African phosphate rock mine. We need to emphasize 2 aspects. First of all, we can notice that our fertilizers unit report better performance. because we still keep dividing our fertilizer operations into two parts: ammonia fertilizers and compound fertilizers. I need to focus on compound fertilizers. Only in this year have we noticed a positive EBITDA in this production area, and we expect that this effect and this trend will continue in the years to come. We have analyzed our historical data in the past, from the past 10 years, and at Police we reported our financial performance and net result for fertilizer at about zero. Of course, we did report several years when our net result was below zero, but in general we can say that we did not generate much profit from our fertilizer activity. We needed to do something to drive profitability of our fertilizer activity. So first of all, we acquired Africa, and we are sourcing our own phosphate rock. But we also radically improved the efficiency of our installations, and we reduced the breakdown ratio of our units. We used to have 80% utilization before, because the breakdown ratios for our production facilities for fertilizers was very high. But this year we have noticed a major improvement, and our installations run at about 92% utilization. So at this point we can say that our production of fertilizers is now profitable. And despite a very difficult situation in terms of exports and higher supply of fertilizers to Poland in terms of imports, we can see that those ratios are improved year on year, and our net debt remained relatively flat at 190 million PLN, which is an effect of our investment plan, and our cash flows from operations are increased. The fourth leading company in our group does not publish its results because it's not a listed company, but we have a representative of Adam Leszkiewicz of Grupa Azoty Zakłady Azotowe Kędzierzyn, and he'll be also invited to present his company's and his group's results. I will continue presenting the results. Results of Kędzierzyn were impacted by a breakdown and a stopover of production due to the explosion and our installations. EBITDA stayed relatively flat at 174 million PLN. But if we consider a one-off impairment loss on the phthalic anhydride unit, our result would be much higher. And the same goes to our net profit. Both results will be much higher if we disregard the impairment loss. Our nominal EBITDA was on the positive side, and we had zero reported for net profit, and our net debt, and our net profit was at 33 million PLN. Our results by Kędzierzyn's results by segment. We had 1,600 million in revenue, which was much better year on year for fertilizers. In terms of oxo alcohols, revenues from sales went down and stayed at about 940 million. EBITDA, both for fertilizers and for oxo, went down, reaching a negative result for oxo alcohols due to a breakdown which occurred in Q3, and also due to an impairment loss recognized on the phthalic anhydride installation. Our balance sheet total was at 1,500 million plus PLN. And net debt was comparable to 2013. Now, this would be all in terms of presentation of our results. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Of course, you know all of it, right? Because this is the times that we live in. Everything is uncertain except for two things: death and taxes. This we all know. But volatility is also something that we cannot predict. For instance, crude oil prices. The exchange rate for PLN and the US dollar. Coal as well. The price of coal changed considerably. The same goes for the prices of wheat, urea, and some other price changes. So the volatility is something we need to take into account. We are growing, we are investing, we are reporting our financial improvements. So we have opened this presentation with a statement that our today's meeting is entitled Wow, and this is something we need to explain to you right now. In today's world, and our business is quite comparable to the automotive business in the USA. Some time ago in the USA, people built huge cars, very big cars like Cadillacs. And at some point, somebody came up with a very small car and decided to launch a large-scale production. But it turned out that it might not be a good solution for all of us, for everybody around the world. Now, we have specialized fertilizers at our group. We have entered a new area. We are not really sure how to dub this area, maybe scientific fertilizers or something like that. This is something we need to talk about. But there's a person who will explain to you what does the WOW abbreviation mean, or the WOW motto mean. In the past year, we worked intently within our group in terms of our human resources and business initiatives and our geographic coverage. Grupa Azoty now has a complementary fertilizer offer, both for early preliminary fertilizers and for across the production stage of crops. We need to define our products, and we need to define it from the perspective of our technologies. So the product we offer to farmers, to agricultural producers, is a fertilizing technology, which is an integral part of the fertilization process. We are identifying a number of interesting opportunities for us, and we can leverage those opportunities. We can offer brand new products. We can develop them alone or in cooperation with our partners within joint products. And this is something that has already happened this year. We entered into the production of micro elements, not macro elements as before, but micro elements. It was a microgranulate using a very special drying method in cooperation with an Adobe group in Poland. We needed to meet expectations of our customers for optimum fertilization processes. We also wanted to offer something to our customers who are not really experts in high-tech fertilization processes. And this is something that we offer to, so to speak, leisure producers, for gardeners, for growers of plants and flowers. So this we decided to call a WOW project, and maybe our products will find their ways to supermarkets and other outlet centers very soon. And we want to show that Grupa Azoty is present in our everyday lives as well. So this is the WOW project we want to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have any questions, we will break into smaller groups, maybe some behind-the-scene discussions. But since we are here still together, I want to thank our IR team for the work, for their work and for their input. And we want to emphasize that we are currently a leader, and this is the award that's been given to our group from the Individual Investors Associations of Poland. But we also receive another award for the Golden Issuers website, and this is something we need to thank you for. We had some consolidations initiatives for our IR area, and this is something we will be focusing on. We will continue that work. We will improve our communication with you and our contacts with you, with the investors. But today's meeting is unique because we also have our webcast viewers. I want to thank them as well, and I'll see you on at our next presentation.